we will learn how to use more than one property of equality to solve equations, how to simplify expressions, how to clear equations of fractions, and how to identify identities and contradictions.
Logical evolution for solving equations using property of equality. In this section, we will develop our skills how to solve equations, especially equations with fractions. After that, we will focus on new type of equations. First would be contradictions and second identity. And we will practice all of this on the next slides.
Problem number 1. We have to solve an equation. We are looking for positive 1x. As you know from arithmetic, to solve for x we have to use the order of operation rules in reverse. First we have to undo addition and then we have to undo multiplication. Let's do it. So we have to subtract 8 from both sides and then we have to divide it by negative 5. And x is 3. But let's talk about algebraic approach. The same equation, we have to separate terms with x and constant term. So we're just moving positive 8 on opposite side, and on opposite side, positive 8 becoming negative 8. And now we have to simplify like terms, because negative 7 and negative 8 will be negative 15. Next, we have to divide it both sides by negative 5. We have to divide it both sides because we want to keep balance. So x is 3. We can show x is 3 as a solution, or we can show this as a dot on real number line, or we can show 3 within curly parentheses. Now let's talk one more time about this equation. We are looking for positive 1x. First, we have to separate terms with x and constant terms. So positive 8 is moving from the left side to the right side. And positive 8 is supposed to change sign. Now we have to simplify negative 7 and negative 8 because this is like terms. So it will be negative 15. And after that, we have to divide it by negative 5 because we are looking for positive 1x. Negative divided by negative will give us positive. And 5 over 5 is 1. So x is just 3 because negative 15 divided by negative 5 give us positive 3. Next problem. We have an equation and as you see we have parentheses. So here is rule. We have to simplify expressions that make up the left and right side of equation before applying any properties of equality. So we have to use the distributive property to remove parentheses and then we have to combine like terms. So negative 8 times 2 and negative 8 times negative 1x. What we will have, negative 8 times positive 2 would be negative 16, and negative 8 times negative 1x would be positive 8x. Now let's look for like terms. 44 and negative 16, like terms, if we combine, this will be positive 28. Next step, we have to separate terms with x and constant terms. So let's move 28 from the right to the left. It doesn't matter where you're moving. Just separate terms with x and terms just like numbers. As a result, we have negative 28 and positive 20, so we can combine because they are alike. This will be negative 8. And now we have negative 8 equals 8x. We are looking for positive 1x, so we have to divide it by positive 8 both sides and x is negative 1, or we can turn around and show x is just negative 1 as a dot on the real number line or as a number within curly parentheses. Next example. X over 5 and negative 4 equal 3. This equation has fraction, and we are looking for positive 1x. How can we find? Let's move negative 4 from the left to the right, and on the right it will be positive 4. Now 3 and 4 is just 7, and we are looking for positive 1x. To get 1, how can we do this? We have to multiply by 5 both sides, because 5 over 5 is 1, so we can simplify, and we will have 1x, or just x, equal 5 times 7, which is 35. This method is good to solve simple equations, but we are going to develop another method which would allow us to clear fractions. So here is the same equation, and we are going to clear fractions. Part 1. We have to find the least common denominator for all denominators. In this case it will be just 5. And then we have to multiply both sides by the least common denominator. In this case it will be just 5. We are going to multiply entire side, left and right. This is why I use parentheses. So times 5 times 5. And after that we are going to use distributive property. 5 times x over 5 will be 5x over 5, and 5 times negative 4. Positive times negative would be negative, and then 4 times 5. And 5 times 3. Now let's simplify, because 5 over 5 is 1. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, and 5 times 3 is 15. Step number 2, where you see yellow highlighting. It's not necessary to do this if you remember one simple thing, that you have to multiply all fractions, all terms on both sides by the least common denominator. Then you can skip this yellow piece. Now part 2. So we have x and negative 20 equals 15. We are going to separate terms with x and constant term, so we will move negative 20 on opposite side, and negative 20 on opposite side will be positive 20. Now 15 and 20 is just 35, so x is 35. We can show on real number line as a point, or we can show within the curly parentheses. Here is the same equation, but I will use shortcut. As you remember, we are looking for positive 1x. First step, to clear fractions, we have to find the least common denominator for all denominators. In this case, it will be just 5. Next, we have to multiply each fraction, each term on both sides by the least common denominator. And it's a good idea to keep parentheses. Now we're multiplying by 5, by 5, by 5. And after that, let's simplify, because 5 over 5 is 1, so it will be just 1x. Negative 4 times positive 5 would be negative 20, and 3 times 5 is 15. Next, we have to separate terms with x and constant term. So we have to move negative 20 from the left to the right, so negative will be on opposite side positive. And now next, let's simplify, because 15 and 20 like this term, so we can combine, it will be 35. So x is 35. We can show on real number line as a point, or in curly parentheses as a number 35. Now let's use practical approach on the same equation. So we have to find the least common denominator for all denominators. For 3, 2, it will be just 6. So now we are multiplying by the least common denominator, which is 6, all pieces on both sides. And we have to simplify, because 6 over 3 is 2, 6 times 5 over 2 is 15, 6 times 3 is 18, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we don't have fractions, and we need to solve for x. So let's separate terms with variables and constant terms. So positive 3x, we are moving from the right to the left, and it will be negative 3x on the left, and positive 15, we are moving from the left to the right, it will be negative 15. Next, we have to simplify because we have like terms. Let's look first group, negative 3x and positive 2x. We can combine, it will be negative 1x, and second group would be positive 18 and negative 15. It will be just 3. But we are looking for positive 1x. But what we have? Negative 1 times x. So we have to divide it by negative 1 both sides and simplify. Negative 1 over negative 1 would be just positive 1x or just x. Positive 3 divided by negative 1 would be just negative 3. We can show this solution on the real number line as a dot, or we can show as a number within curly parentheses. Now, let's solve this equation, use more practical approach. Factoring first denominator, it will be 15 times 3 times 5. Factoring second denominator, 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. Composing the least common denominator, which would be first denominator, 3 times 5, and then 2 times 2, 60. So next step, we have to multiply both sides by 60. And it's a good idea to keep parentheses. And then we have to simplify, because what we have 60 over 15, it will be just 4. 60 over 12 is just 5. And one more time, 60 over 12 is just 5. As a result, we have now equivalent equation without fractions. Let's simplify. 4 times x would be just 4x, removing parentheses. 5 times positive 2x would be just positive 10x, and positive 5 times 5 would be positive 25. We have equation without fractions, and we have to separate terms with x's and constant term. I decided to move 10x from the right to the left. So what we will have, negative 10x and positive 4x equal 25. Now, let's look for like terms, because we have negative 10x and positive 4x. So it will be negative 6x. But we are looking for positive 1x, so we have to divide it by negative 6 both sides. Negative 6 over negative 6 would be just x, or 1x, equal to negative 25 over 6, or we can show as a negative 4 and 1 6. Or we can show as a dot on real number line if you want. Let's repeat the solution of previous equation. First of all, we want to clear fractions. So for that purpose, we have to find the least common denominator for all denominators, for 15 and 12. As you remember, it will be just 60. Next, we have to multiply both sides, all fractions, by the least common denominator. And because first fraction has numerator with 2 terms and second fraction has numerator with 2 terms, this is why we have to keep parentheses because we multiply entire complicated fraction. After that, let's simplify. 60 over 15 is just 4, and 60 over 12 is 5. As a result, we have equivalent equation without fractions. Now we can go forward because we have to remove parentheses. Positive 4 times positive x and positive 4 times positive 11. And then we will have positive 4x and positive 44. Next step, positive 5 times 5 will be 25, and 5 times positive 2x will be just positive 10x. Next step, we have to separate terms with variables and constant terms. So let's move positive 10x from the right to the left, and 44 to the right. As a result, we will have negative 10x, because when we are moving term, we have to change sign, and positive 4x equals 25, and negative 44, because we move positive 44 from the left to the right. And then we have to simplify again. Left side, negative 10x and positive 4x. Together it will be negative 6x, and then 25 and negative 44, negative 19. We have to divide it by negative 6 because we are looking for positive 1x, and x would be just positive 19 over 6 or 3 and 1 over 6. Next equation even more complicated because now we have 3 fractions, but steps are the same. First we have to clear equation of fractions. So first step is we are looking for least common denominator, factoring first denominator, factoring second denominator, and composing the least common denominator. For 15, 12, and 2, the least common denominator is just 60. After that, we multiply all fractions on both sides by the least common denominator, which is 60. And if you have numerator with more than one term, use parentheses, otherwise you will make a mistake. Let's simplify. 60 over 15 is just 4, 60 over 12 is just 5, and 60 over 2 is 30. As a result, we have an equation without fraction. It's equivalent equation. It will have the same solution, but only better appearance. Now we have to remove parentheses using distributive property. So it will be positive 4 times positive 1x, positive 4 times positive 11. And it will be 4x and positive 44. Then positive 5 times positive 5 will be 25 positive, and 5 times positive 2x will be just positive 10x. And 30 we have to keep. Part 2. I copy previous statement, and now let's separate term with variables and constant terms. Let's move positive 10x from the right to the left, and 44, positive 44, from the left to the right. As a result, we will have negative 10x and positive 4x equal 25, and positive 30 and negative 44. Let's simplify because we have like terms, negative 10x and 4x, and one group and second group would be 25, positive 30, and negative 44. First group give us negative 6x, and second group give us 25 positive and 30 positive would be 55, and negative 44 positive 11. Now we have to divide it by negative 6 both sides because we are looking for positive 1x. Negative 6 over negative 6 would be positive 1x or just x, and then positive 11 divided by negative 6 would be negative 11 over 6. We can show as a dot on real number line, or we can convert into mixed number, and it will be negative 1 and 5 over 6. Previous equation, but I will use more practical approach. So the least common denominator would be 4, 15, 12, and 2, just 60. Now we are going to multiply by the least common denominator all fractions on both sides. And whenever you have numerator with more than one term, use parentheses. So next, let's simplify. 60 over 15 is 4, 60 over 12 is 5, and 60 over 2 is just 30. So as a result, we have equivalent equation without fractions, but we have parentheses, so we have to use distributive property to remove parentheses. Positive 4 times x and positive 4 times positive 11 will have positive 4x and positive 44. Then positive 5 times positive 5 would be 25, and positive 5 times positive 2x would be 10x, and 30 we have to keep. Next, let's look. We have terms with variable on both sides and constants on both sides, so we have to separate them. So let's move positive 10x from the right to the left and 44 to the right. As a result, we will have negative 10x, because when we move term, we have to change sign, and positive 4x on the left, on the right, 25, and positive 30, and negative 44, because we move positive 44, so we have to change sign. Now let's look for like terms. Negative 10x and positive 4x. Together it will be negative 6, and positive 25 and positive 30 and negative 44. Together it will be positive 11. We are looking for positive 1x, so we have to divide it by negative 6 both sides. And now negative 6 divided by negative 6 would be positive 1x, or just x, and positive 11 divided by negative 6 would be negative 11 over 6, or you can use as a mixed number negative 1 and 5 over 6.